Keep my phone open on the side so I can see any kind of questions that pop up as well.
Yeah, here we go again. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Second Order Chaos. My name is Rando, and tonight we are going to do something that is sure to be just very, very dumb on my part. Oh, wait, it's damn it, I wanted to hide my resume real quick. There we go. Before everybody starts like nitpicking at it and shit like that.
This is already great.
Yeah. So before everybody like starts like roasting me on it, it's not quite that time yet. Let me put this up here. Yeah. So my name is Rado. Welcome my guests, two of my regulars, Mr. Mike Murray, CEO, right? Scope Security, CEO, founder, guy that's going to be on the hook when you get investigated. The whole thing.
Yep, that's how it works. Guy that signs off on the tax returns, all of this.
Signs off not. It's a startup, so he's not quite big enough to have a scapegoat. But man, is he getting there?
Hopefully soon.
And of course, everybody's favorite ex-Fed, Mr. Don't Look Behind You, Dr. Russ. How are you, sir?
Great every day. How about yourself, my friend?
Oh, dude, doing well. So yeah. Now, disclaimer, because my manager, who's also a friend of mine, my team lead, watches occasionally, and he pays attention to my feed. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not actually quitting. I've been having this conversation a lot lately. Of people, especially, I mean, Mike, you and I have talked about this on different panels and shows ad nauseum about looking for jobs in the virus economy and blah, 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 blah. So I also floated an idea of doing like some virtual resume workshops and shit. And one of the ideas that I've always had, and I tried to float this on the last podcast crew I was with, is instead of having like these closed door, which is fine. Like, people want privacy. Like, that's all well and good. But what if we had, like, a live resume review of people on a panel? Oh, look, Damona's coming in.
Oh,
excellent.
Hi.
I'm going to...
No, we're going to do video art week. It's going to be fun, gents. Give me a sec.
If you want to. And now we're going to see how... Okay, here we go again. Let's go. Let's do this.
Oh, the face is all over the place. That's what happened, isn't it?
Yeah. That's fine. I'm working on it. So now, naturally, like privacy things and things like that, and I can imagine how not everybody would want to be hung out to dry, or have their stuff publicly ridiculed. Let's change that real quick.
Why are you putting your resume and OPSEC hell on the internet?
It's already there. Like, who gives a shit?
A long time ago, like OPM lost all my PII.
Yeah.
Like I don't give a shit anymore. Like if anyone is going to do anything to me, it's going to happen anyways, and there's no control over the situation.
Yeah.
It's just having a plan for when something like that happens.
Don't worry, I'm sure the Chinese have good enough OPSEC that they won't lose it.
Yeah, no.
I think they monetized it.
So, yeah. So, and before I go any further, welcome to our third guest, Miss Lady Demona.
Or Red, doesn't really matter.
Red, Lady Demona. Yeah, I always just call you Demona, but that's fine.
Fair warning, I do have a cat, so if you hear random meows, it's him on the floor next to the mic.
Or
you're not just watching Super Troopers.
Or it's me howling in pain.
That too, resume updating is very painful.
Yeah.
This is a really fun task, meow.
So, dude, lots of people subbing in and stuff. Thank you, everybody, for this. Thanks, everybody, for like gifting tier 1 subs. Pseudo Social Club going apeshit gifting subs to my channel. I do appreciate that. I actually have gotten shockingly paid by Twitch. Like, I got a check for like $120, like, which was weird.
Damn.
Right?
Cool.
Yeah, fucking balling over here. But I do appreciate everybody who tunes in and finds it valuable. Even if it's just like one person, like that's awesome. All right, now we have our full panel. So I said, again, disclaimer, I am not going anywhere, Gigamon. If I had the idea to fillet people, it wasn't even going to be that so much. It's going to be a little comedy behind it. But maybe I should eat my own dog food for a second. And I don't know, I'll try it out. So, yeah, speaking of OPSEC, I don't know, man, my resume's been on GitHub forever. Like, that's actually, somebody gave me the idea, and I really liked it, is having a page on GitHub. That was my resume. So you go into this is when we were going on site and stuff like that, and saying, hey, just go to this GitHub page. Like, that's fine. Didn't have my address or whatever on it.
Doesn't have your public SSH key, which has been useful for me.
Funny story about that. I have done that. I was doing an interview and this was when I just got into security, and I was already about to lose my gig, so I had to find a new one real quick within the company. And they're like, oh, have you ever been like a sysop, like a systems administrator? I'm like, oh no, how hard could it be? And before I even got on the interview with them, which was like a live like screen session, he said, hey, send me your key so you can get into our interview server. And I sent him my private key, not once, not twice, 3 times, because I had no idea what keys really were, because I was still super new. So and then I forget his name, but he was much like the cat that I have downstairs that's currently trying to torture a mouse to death. He got me on the interview and would not let me off. Like, clearly, I didn't even know what grep was. I didn't know what like top and whatever and tail and all this shit was. But he made me sit there. So, anyway, but I digress. So, man, did I screw that up now?
No, that was me. Somehow Discord decided to drop me and reconnect me. So that's
same.
fine.
No, that's fine. This is my reminder to say ni hao.
I'll fix it. Hold on, look, I fixed.
Hey.
Fine, I'm back.
So
no one needs to worry about the little tiny FBI man behind the thing. It's like MSS.
So yes. So now I decided, let's go over Danny's resume and see everything I am doing wrong. Because of all 3 of you, I would trust your expertise. So Russ did how many years as a Fed?
More than my fair share.
Fair enough.
At least
Enough.
Yeah. No. Yeah. No. For But my background on things and something to bolt on that I wanted to mention to you, like just going over your resume is just generally healthy anyways, because from a genealogical perspective, you have your life from a genealogical perspective, and then you also have your career, which is a representation of you. And there may be achievements and accomplishments that it's just good to put a footnote down, because you may not think about it when it's time to actually look for a job. It may not be the forefront thing on your mind. So it's like a Cliff's Notes for your professional life.
And it's pretty good, like every quarter, to just kind of like did this. People that I know, and they're on their A fucking game. It's just every quarter. Bloop, bloop, bloop.
So,
So for my professional background, it was 10 years in the bureau, and before that, it was 10 years in infosec.
and of those combined 20, how often were you responsible for seeing resumes, vetting them, having to actually do interviews?
A lot.
A lot, yeah. Okay.
Even currently, yeah. So it's my personal experience of the interview process. Unfortunately, a lot of schools train and teach that it's a one-way street where you're trying to sell yourself to the employer. It's really a point for your ability to interview the employer as well. So you are you. You have your own things that make you happy and successful. And having recently looked for a job and having recently had to do the whole resume job hunt sort of stuff, like almost this time last year is when I think I started conversations. I tried something new, my own. I put jokes in my resume, dad jokes and very specific humor. And the feedback that I got, one, if someone didn't like it, I didn't want to work for you. That was one place only. Everyone else really enjoyed it. It broke the monotony of reading fluff is kind of what I feel like it was. So
I have
it
a
added
couple
some
of
color
Easter
to the
eggs,
room.
yeah. I have a couple Easter eggs in my resume as well. And it's little like talking points that's like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, and then you go off.
That's a great idea.
And I really recommend it from the construct of when not your first job, second job, at some point, or maybe if that's what you want to do, to use it as a litmus test to read the culture of where you're getting ready to go into. I would say it's too premature at that point. A lot of times you just need hours under your belt. As you get more mature in your space and things like that, it's a really good way to do a proactive filtering of the culture of the place that is reviewing your background.
The one thing I'll say about that is you nailed it there, Russ. Is that might not be a thing early in your career when your resume is a little thin. It's one thing when you're 20 years in and you can filter the employer a little better. But I've read a lot of resumes that are pretty thin, and if they were full of jokes, it would be like, oh, okay, like there's a time and a place, I think.
There's a healthy balance.
Yeah, I would dare say still give like nuggets about you as an individual, even if you're younger in your career. That for the point of having that conversation point, and if an interviewer or a potential company has read it and goes, "What about this?" Is a great thing to talk about because it's typically something you're proud of.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think you have to come across as a human being in your resume. And far too few of us, like the advice that I got growing up about resumes, it was all stodgy and serious, and I hate resumes like that. I probably reviewed 500 resumes in the last 5 months, and if I read another really boring, terribly formatted, this is what I did at my last 3 jobs in the same cut and paste over and over again, I'm gonna stab my eyes out.
So with that, I think we should totally segue to Danny's.
I was really purposely content to have you guys talk to each other. Maybe we just.
No, we're here for you.
And I want to say, like, also I'm also a professor and teacher and all that sort of stuff. Dude, Motherfucker, you ended a sentence with a preposition in your summary.
Okay, listen. One thing at a time. One thing at a time, please. Disclaimer: I was not good at high school. I did not pay attention in English or math or.
Did not perform well in high school.
I,
No.
I should put that as
We're
my
here to help you.
opening.
We're going to help you. This is the community. Like, we're all in it together. We're going to help you, man.
Okay. So you guys are able to see in the screen share my resume. Yeah. Okay.
I'm putting on the professional glasses for you. This is how you know it's legit now.
And one other subjective thing that I would like to bring up is importance of cover letters, because they are a component that helps you allegedly talk to the supervisor outside of the normal lines with human resources. And then subjectively underneath that, it's 2020. I haven't resumes become like some sort of JSON or XML or whatever sort of string YAML, fuck that. Thing that you can just upload, because they say, hey, upload your resume, and then recopy and paste everything across all the individual pages. It's 2020. We've dealt with murder hornets. This should be easier.
So yes, before we start eviscerating me, and everybody questioning, why does anybody take this fucking guy seriously? Cover letters were always my thing, especially when I was first trying to break in both to IT and then a little bit later, 10 years later, security. I had this weird lull of right as I ended my IT career and then was trying to get into security. I had literally no experience. I had like 3 months in a SOC, which I learned nothing. So I could, and I realized I was already at a disadvantage. So I started pulling stunts. I once sent 10 pizzas to this place I was trying to get a job at, and it actually caused a security incident because they thought they were being poisoned. And I was like, no, bro, like it's, and of course my name was all over it. Semi funny. It's actually not appropriate now, but it was super funny back then. This was on St. Patrick's Day, so I couldn't find one, but I had posted on Craigslist, are there any little people that would like to dress as a leprechaun to deliver these pizzas for me? And the dude said that he would do it, and then he never showed, so I just had it delivered up my own. I thought it would
go over well.
Thought it would go over well. Now, again, would I do that in 2020? This was like 2012, I think, 2010, something like that. 10 years ago.
That's 8. That's 8. No, hold on.
It's whatever. So that's a true story. If I still have a screenshot somewhere of my Craigslist posting. But yes, it actually caused a security incident, and then they actually called me and was like, can you explain this? And I was like, I was just trying to get your attention. They go, well, you got it. And I was like, no, seriously, these are, because I'd actually had one interview with them already, and I was trying to follow. I was desperate for a job. And I was like, you can eat them. They're fine. I doubt they ever ate them, but I spent like $70 on pizzas. So anyway, that was one thing that I did. But cover letters,
Don't do that.
I would not recommend doing that in today's climate whatsoever. It got their attention. It's kind of like the same way you get attention in like Ghost Recon when you hear a loud shot and everybody wakes up and kills you. It's the same kind of thing. But no, cover letters. I had always written mine not stories, but persuasively in natural language of in like a language that would get your attention, right? Like I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. I'm actually more eloquent in my cover letters than I'm being right now. In way, I will ask and respond, those kinds of questions, just to really get their things. I would tell them a story about why I wanted to work for them, and I would tailor these things to each individual job.
But yes, you can use your resume as your catch-all. It really helps a ton to have a tailored cover letter for each application with it, because that's functionally. I appreciate the effort in reading a custom cover letter that comes along with the resume as well, because that means that someone took vested interest and my time as a reviewer as well, is at least how I feel about it.
I'm gonna throw in a little point there. I don't even think the resume gets to be a catch-all. You know, I've seen people who are applying for jobs as a threat hunter and as a red teamer, and those should be different resumes, right? You should highlight your experience for threat hunting, and your experience for red teaming is different, right? If you know, to use Danny as an example, if you were applying for a threat hunting job or an evangelist job, I would think that the resume, you know, and the things that you highlighted for each job, the things that you highlighted in your summary, the things that you highlighted in your experience should really be focused on the job that you want, not just as a sort of catch-all, you know, bucket of here's things I did, but how do those things, you know, tell the story of why you're perfect for the job that you're applying for.
It's fair.
Yeah, because like I mean, you're still competing. Like it's not, even though, and I don't know. We used to always say, "Oh, negative unemployment. Everybody can get a job. There's more people than jobs." Blah 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 blah. Not, I mean, that's not necessarily the, like, you're still competing. And and the other thing that we'll get to later. First, we'll get to the actual shit on the page. But the follow up. I still, not paper anymore, but I'll always send a thank you email, because it can also double barrel as a follow up and like a nudge nudge, how you doing, if you time it enough. But we'll get to that. Actually, Red, I wanted to ask you too. What is your history? Have you been responsible for interviews? Have you been responsible for picking candidates and things like that?
Yes. In my career and history, so both sides, like done interviews and then conducted, and I've stopped counting at the hundreds of resumes in my career that I have read. I have a slightly unorthodox approach to resumes review. I don't use HR as my first filter because gatekeeping and fuck HR. Sorry. Just give me the resumes and I will purposefully not look at the name at it, and I will just look at the body of the resume. Because as a chick in a STEM field, the struggle is real, right? So I just kind of removed all that aspect of it. And there are some really bad resumes, and there are some really great people that have not the best resumes because of, you know, imposter syndrome or just don't know how to actually word it. It is a skill to write a resume, and it's not taught very well in college at all. Also, to the point of cover letters, every industry is different. So, like, life sciences, pharma don't really do CVs at all. But academia as well, like, because I'm on the East Coast in a big town, there's lots of colleges here. Yes. Or even if you're applying to jobs overseas, yes, depending on the industry. So it's a hit or miss. But the point of, I guess, the CV or cover letter is to make that personal connection however you can see fit past HR, right? They're kind of your gatekeepers, unfortunately. So that hiring manager, if you can get to them, be it the email, be it the thank you, your employee social engineering tactics at this point.
Don't send pizzas with a leprechaun. Just don't fucking do it.
Don't send pizzas with a leprechaun. Don't. Oh, God.
I got his consent. Listen, he was okay with it.
No.
Aren't we all about consent?
You should be, but they wouldn't have ran a security incident if you got it.
I plead the fifth, and then insanity.
Anyway, let's fucking get to this madness.
So, I'd like to talk about the architecture and structure of yours.
Okay. So
before we get into the nitty gritty,
yeah,
like some of the,
I'm gonna do a whole scroll through
format.
Yeah.
Like, how is the scaffolding of your resume built?
Shoddily.
Well, like
with duct tape.
The thing that I appreciate is, you know, your name's at the top.
That's
How do I get a hold of you?
Well, I'm not there.
Email address, phone number.
Okay.
You know,
before we do all of this, let's just take a scroll through so you get the feel of what this is.
Yeah.
Okay, so
turn this sucker to 2 pages. Like scroll out and
I
let's
know.
look at the structure.
Okay. Let me see if that'll do that. View.
An awful lot of tentacle porn.
Yeah. How the fuck? Oh. This I don't even know how to use Word. I don't know how to turn this back into a thing. Oh wait, I know. Hold on. Let's go with Zoom, and 75% maybe. Here we go.
There we go.
Yeah.
It works.
So there's all three actually, and let me see if I could go just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And actually, it's kind of cut off on stream, so I will fix that. Don't worry. So this, for historical purposes, this is the last version of my resume that I have given out. I've been with Gigamon, which is not included on this because I haven't updated it yet. I've been with Gigamon. It'll be 2 years, a happy 2 years in August. FYI, in case my boss is listening, I am happy. Don't worry. Everything is fine.
This is a good learning experience.
This
for
is
other people.
healthy for other people. This is an exercise.
Yeah. So this seemed, and I don't know if this resume like got there because this was I got it because a friend of mine had gone there. A bunch of people I knew had gone to a company called Iceberg, which had been acquired by Gigamon, and they had actually wanted me. This was very much, yes, it comes from a privileged position of knowing somebody who ended up knowing me like on Twitter and shit like that, and they're like, we're big, like.
You don't have to qualify to us. We're just looking at.
I feel like I have to.
No, you really don't.
Not at all.
We're looking at the structure.
Like so like criminals justify their behavior. I totally get what you're doing.
All right, I fixed it on stream. You guys should be able to see it a little bit better.
Alrighty. So thank you for breaking it out this way. First thing that sticks out to me is the repetition. Like the constant header and footer on each page, that's lost space. Typically, when my perspective or my philosophy is your immediate contact information, that is the personal side of you and all that stuff, like how they get a hold of you and all that stuff. Top of page 1, that's it. You could lose the rest of the pages. They don't want the rest of the pages because even as a reviewer of resumes, if I like someone, I write like A+ on the top page and I toss the rest of everything else. Like it reduces the workload on my desk. So my first immediate recommendation as a format sort of thing is like all of your contact information and name on the following pages. Actually, I would just have your name and then all that contact information all the way at the top of the first page, and then leave it at that, and then get all this extra real estate back.
Right.
For other content.
And I just realized, like, okay, my phone number's on there. Fine, fucking call me. What are you gonna do?
Oh, don't say these things. Don't
doxing yourself.
Don't take him up on that. Please be nice.
Change your phone number to 215-418-4000 and see how that goes for you.
And I didn't even realize that that's actually what I'd done until Alkaline Red said, "Damn, you brave," and I instantly knew before I even looked at what was on the screen what I had put. It's fine. This isn't clearly. This is not an OPSEC related episode. The whole entire topic, the whole premise of it. Anyway. So, okay.
215-418-4000. That's all I got to say. That's a fantastic number for people to call. Yeah, like where you've got your name on the following pages, I'd like that stuff, I'd nuke it there. But where you have it on your front page, like the stuff that you had in your footer, put that at the top. Like that's your like, look at me, I'm Mr. Meat.
Gotcha. I'm not sure if I'll edit this as we go along because you guys can just fire shit along at me.
I would just say make comments on it because you'll be kind of
fair. Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I think you have to also think like a newspaper a little bit, right? You think about what's think about what's above the fold, right?
Yep.
To Russ's point, the contact information is super important. But I mean, dude, you've been in your career for I can't see the dates because all the text is too small, but a long
It's
ass
about
time.
it's about 10 years.
And education is not the like where you went to school and the classes you've taken are not the first thing I care about.
It's good for when you're out of college, right?
Exactly.
Yes, I would quantify that like to Red's point, where you are in your career.
Right.
Yeah.
This is about Danny's resume. Just FYI.
You are 10 years in. You can move it further back and actually highlight your actual working career at this point.
Yeah.
I would actually also like to bolt onto that is that if you are 10 years into your career and you're still putting down your GPA on your education stuff, I judge that personally.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of the time that's just
Someone's living in the past.
Well, but sometimes it's just people start like the resume becomes this living document where they had that on their resume 10 years ago and they just left it there. And I think
that's a reflection of the individual who put their heart in it.
Yeah, you got to think about your audience too, right? Like you got to think about what does the person who is reading this care to read first. It's the newspaper analogy is not a terrible one. Like what is the headline of this resume? And it's probably not your GPA from 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, I gotta.
Yeah, like from a graphics design aspect, you got like less than a couple seconds to make that first impression. And I need to succinctly and quickly dissect everything how you've laid out in your resume in a flash of an eye. So the most important thing on the top, having enough visual cues between sections and subsections to draw the eye through your resume is a thing. Also giving enough visual change to know that okay, their professional experience is different than your education, but then here's the different sections within the professional experience than where you worked at. Just enough so that upon opening and immediately looking at it, I know as a reviewer, because that's all you're going to get.
How the hell do I get rid of section breaks on pages? This is.
You're in print view in Word.
Oh, I don't fucking know. Whatever. That's fine. I'm just gonna make notes. Yeah, you're right. I'm not going to make changes right now.
Don't make changes.
But it's good to make, actually you can do the track changes thing if you want to.
Comments and track changes.
Yeah. Do that.
Track changes. Okay.
As for your resume, what I would care about saying is, I like that you put the summary up front. Because that's your narrative about, why I'm fun and lovable and huggy.
Okay, does
right after that, I'd like to see your experience.
Okay.
What do you guys think about the skills? I see a ton of resumes that do a skills summary or sort of a set of bullet points right there that help to give that sort of, these are the salient points about who I am. I've seen really good ones. I've seen really terrible ones, and so I'm kind of on the fence about it.
Depends on the role.
Yeah.
If you are doing a technical role, I want to see your skills. If you're doing a supervisory managerial role, technical skills, I want to see different types of things. Like, know what the hell a Gantt chart is.
Right.
But even managerial levels, I've never seen nunchuck skills or anything like that explicitly itemized there. So I think it depends.
Yeah, no, because I am hybrid super tech, but now I'm in leadership, right? So there is call out to, here's my tech and math chops, and here's business stuff that I currently do and leadership stuff that I currently do. Mainly because, it's rough. My resume is rough.
You just had me remember, once upon a time before I started looking, I had 3 versions of my resume. I would have one base template, and then I would carve it out 3 different ways. One was managerial, one was technical, one was education.
Yep. So it really comes down to how you want to sell yourself.
I'm still here. My other laptop turned off. God damn it. This is nerve-wracking.
It's okay.
Yeah,
it's fine. It's really personal.
Because
it's your resume.
It is.
I have never I've dealt with some pretty touchy topics on this show. I have never felt so stressed as I do right now.
Oh, dude, I think it's
like,
incredibly cool that you're doing this, and I'm sure everybody will get a lot out of it. You know, your vulnerability here is an incredibly powerful thing.
Yeah.
and that's why I wanted to help, is that this is deeply personal. Taking
Oh
critiques
yeah.
and input about like manifestation of you in a professional space is hard.
Yeah.
In a very succinct fashion to get your foot into a door, it is incredibly difficult.
Okay. Fuck. So anyway, so the education. You said at this point. Now the other thing is, you made a good point about this point in my career, and even in the over the past 2 years. There's no way to say this without sounding egotistical or fucking whatever. Certain things about people who might know who I am, or certain things I do, or whatever. Like,
Well, they know your number, so
Oh, I know your number, your email address.
it's a good thing I didn't put my whole fucking address on there. Has changed, and it's become
We'd have been sending pizza to you.
better include a leprechaun and a unicorn. Yeah, but I even in all those really good things and knowing more people and things, again, no way to say this without sounding like egotistical. It's really not meant to be that. I'm still very much in the mental headspace of somebody who is biting and clawing and is comfortable with a thing. I'm almost 40 years old. This format is what I was taught 20 years ago. So
still a kid.
yeah, so it's really hard to get rid of that.
Yeah.
So this is one other thing that I would, like, what I was ranting on just a moment ago. Like, we're talking about the position of the education thing. For me, right now, for most ethical roles, with where you are in your career, education is behind immediately professional experience, unless you are applying for an adjunct position somewhere to teach at a university
your
of
field,
something
yeah.
or another.
Right.
And education is forefront of everything else. They don't care like how long you've been working somewhere. They care like, do you have a master's degree or whatever.
See, Russ, I might even put it at the end.
Yeah.
Especially
That's fair, yeah.
if Danny's applying for evangelist roles where his speaking and his community contributions are a big part of the story, I would even put the education behind that.
Behind the community stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, it's all about, I think we're all saying this over and over and over again. You have to know what role you're going for, and you have to tailor the message of this whole document to say, I'm perfect for that job. And so if the community stuff is the most important thing, find a way to weave it through the whole thing, make it part of the summary, and put it up ahead of the education. If you're, to your point though, Russ, if you're applying for a professor job, put the education up front.
First, yeah.
Right?
If you're going to start teaching at Sands.
Exactly.
It's
But
like, what I like to do is keep those base sections as a template so I can just quickly move them around, and Bob's my metaphorical uncle.
So yes, that is the reason why that is the newer section, because my last couple of gigs have been on that evangelist tip, and I think I specifically put community contributions on there because of going for the gig at Gigamon, of knowing like, hey, they want somebody who is really involved and things like that. So that's why that's on there. But you're right, that's actually so that should probably be more upfront, you think?
So again, it goes back to what job you're applying for.
Keep it up to date.
Yeah. I would dare say, to answer one of the questions in the Twitch stream, like in your case, I would do community, then certifications, then education.
Okay. Yeah, because Zephyrfish asked, what about certs?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. Maybe this is another question towards the end of this thing, but I have an impossible time keeping this to one page. But I recently heard something. I think it was Angus Red, who's a recruiter in South Africa. He was on. He did a panel on Circle City Con, and he mentioned about like not putting all these bullet points for everything. What do you guys think about that? Like, at a certain point, if it goes back far enough, does somebody care about a bullet points for every single gig you have on there?
So there will be a point in your career, as you mature in your career, where you're going to do so much stuff that it's not going to fit to 3 pages, right? And again, you're going to have to start truncating the stuff that you did 10, 15, 20 years ago. Because one, it's not relevant. And two, you're just showing that you've worked there. So at that point, it's like diminishing return bullets at this point. Every year, if I add something to the top, take something from the bottom. Keep the version history because you might need to know back in the day when you're tailoring something to a specific role, like, oh, I did this before. But there is, yeah, I'm not a advocate of the one pager because as you get further into your career and you do so much more stuff that you want to highlight, this one page is not going to fit everything that we do now.
This is how
I
I've
think that
worked it in my last run on this. Is that 20 years in the industry. If I before when I was going through with this stuff, and the various iterations and pooped it all out, it was a lot. So what I ended up doing is I made the conscious decision of distilling down to really the last 5 big jobs I've had, and then all those other life experiences that I had, I folded up into my profile verbatim, or in your case, your summary paragraph at the top. So like
Also,
that what
in the world of LinkedIn as well, remember your life is also on LinkedIn if you want to keep everything there.
But
yeah, you can reference that.
I don't even think you necessarily keep everything there. I think it's like it's almost an inverted pyramid, right? You
Yeah.
want long descriptions at the top, and then as it goes down, those descriptions get shorter and shorter until, the first 3 jobs you had are just like, okay, I did that.
Yeah.
If you even want to mention them at all.
Yeah, if you even want to mention them at all, right? Like,
So there's a fine line, right? Like there's 15, 20 years of work experience. So if you look young, I have to leave it in my resume to say no, I have 20 years experience, right? Because when they talk to you, they unconscious bias sucks, right? So I leave the stuff that I've done that's relevant to my field in there, but to your point, diminishing returns, right?
Yeah, so like now, again, hypothetically, I would keep going forward in roles that have that evangelist tilt to them, that have some kind of outward communication. So maybe now I don't need to expand as much on my work at Mandiant or GE or things like that. And this is me thinking out loud. You guys correct me if I'm, but at the same time, there's also people that think like evangelists are just like glorified sales and marketing people, but I'm also come from a technical, highly technical background, so trying to still keep the technical edge to it while pursuing something more in a forward-facing communication role. So, and again, I know this is a very niche case and it's not going to help everybody, but maybe the overarching theme of this is if you are switching disciplines.
I don't think it's a niche case at all. And I think if I by the way, the type's really small on my screen, so I can't see exactly what the lines are.
Yeah, I'm trying to make that better.
No, it's totally okay.
Fine,
Dan.
it's
What
fine.
I was gonna say is like I would go back and say suppose you were leaving Geekamon, which we all know you're not.
I'm not.
We said that like 12 times. But
Because
like,
I'm hiring him next week.
Just put it on the
wait,
screen.
I thought he was coming to
No,
scope
I'm not
security as an
leaving.
evangelist.
Jesus Christ.
But no, what I was going to say about the Mandiant job and the GE job is how do the things you did there say I'm going to be a great evangelist later on?
Here,
Did you
yeah.
train people, and focus on the things that you did at Mandiant and GE that lead somebody to believe that later on you're a perfect evangelist? Like I always believe that the career that you present in a resume should tell the story of why your next job is the logical conclusion of everything that they see here. So what did AWS prepare you for that makes this job perfect? What did Squirrel do for you that made this job perfect? Like, look at it all in the lens of how did this shape who I am to become the person I want to be today, right? And so maybe your DFIR stuff from Mandiant is not particularly relevant, but maybe you did something there that was really great that helped you be a better communicator, or something to that nature. I'm riffing and making this up as I go along, but
Right.
But to me, it should all tie together in some way
Tell
that the
story.
story makes sense.
So I feel like we've covered a lot. so
Oh
far.
yeah, you
Oh,
got
yeah.
you got
Um,
the full fire
so-
hose to the face.
Really? Because it
So,
feels like we just started.
yeah. So something that I want to focus on for you is on your summary. And I'm reading what I wrote for my most recent summary for my the job I have now. This is what I see for you. And the difference that I have is that I feel like the way that I wrote mine was the elevator pitch, kind of about myself, written almost quasi third person.
Yeah.
Um, so, with one specific piece of humor at the very end that Travis Goodspeed recommended that I throw in, and it actually paid dividends. If you have a ham radio operator's license, 73's comma on your call sign. There's some people that will see that, recognize it, and that just it's kind of like if you're an Eagle Scout, throw that you're an Eagle Scout on your resume. It's like a thing, apparently. So uh, that worked apparently, but I would recommend that we look at your summary and have it become your elevator pitch about yourself. Like you're all of a sudden trapped in the elevator with the executive that's the hiring is a what's it, and without hitting the emergency brake and starting to fart a lot, what do you say? Everything else is under duress.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. So like I remember my motivation when writing this summary was just like like passion vomit, honestly. Like how do I distill how much I love what I do into this? But no, I never considered like the whole actually like the one time I was in an elevator with Kevin Mandia himself and I didn't have to pitch anything, but I had something I had to fucking talk about something. So I made a joke about him doing porn, and like that went over well.
You are a brave
How
soul.
well that turned out.
He laughed. No, actually, I think he made the joke. I just went with it. I was like, oh, Kevin. I was like, because I did. I watched all his videos. I watched all his interviews, and I was like, dude, I've seen all your videos. He goes, oh God, which ones? And I was like, all of them. And the joke went on for a little longer than it probably should have. So yeah.
Sorry, you're getting a dark part of my brain really activated all of a sudden.
But yeah, so there was that.
So on the note of the summary, I think the first sentence of the summary has to be punchy. It has to be something that says who you are, and it's that elevator pitch idea, right?
Yeah.
And again, back to the idea that you're focused on evangelist roles. The very first thing you say is, "I'm a threat hunter."
Yeah, that's not gonna get anybody.
Well, it'll get you a threat hunting job.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Right. But that's I feel like I'm one note on this entire stream. I say the same damn thing over and over.
No,
again,
it's fine.
But I think it's important, right?
These are the first words that someone's going to read outside your name.
Exactly.
So, let me read to you the one that I have for my first part of it, paying no attention to what I'm actually saying, but what I'm saying in some regards. Reading mine, information systems security professional with over 15 years of combined experience in law enforcement, federal policy, information systems security, customer relations, employee and team management, systems analysis, engineering, teaching, network application consulting. That covers a wide variety of like all those different things that I've been able to do that I don't explicitly always go into detail on the resume. But I say I'm a professional in a particular field, timeline in which I've done that, and some very key skills that I feel like I've honed out of that duration of things. So like excluding reading the individual bullet points of anything else along those lines, you've learned that I do InfoSec, timeline in which I've done InfoSec, and some things that I feel about myself that are some of my key strengths. For what you could say, information system security professional or evangelist or whatever, if how many years of experience that you've been in the field, and at this particular point, you start itemizing some specific examples that demonstrate the timeline and duration of someone who's overly qualified for something like that. Like you're selling yourself elevator pitch, but not or do it like I did because I like run-on sentences, but I don't fucking like sentences with prepositions at the end.
Okay, I get it. God damn it.
Pay attention to those blue squigglies. No, doesn't even have one. Well, it has one on the word "I'm" beforehand, but that's the architecture of how I broke mine out on that. I also, because I'm the quasi-technical field, my following sentence describes everything from being able to do, says experience in design and provisioning local and wide area networks, budgeting, project management, and network construction management, detail-oriented, able to work as a team lead, member, or independently, keen ability to learn new technologies and apply them to meet the organization's requirements. So in other words, hey, like you're fucking smart, dude. You're the monkey that can put the box under the banana to get the banana.
Oh yeah, I could do that really good.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, really
like,
well. Grammar announcing.
And then one personal remark about myself is like I try to find fun in all in all my endeavors, and then I close it out with my call sign stuff. So like it has that serious part, and it slowly softens up, and then it goes off to like, yeah, I could have had. That's me. I try to fun with things. So that's how I've written mine. If I could do, if I were to try to do the recommendation for you, I would say, on the similar construct of you're a professional, whatever field you want to describe yourself as being a professional for, and then how long you've been doing it, and then break out 1 to 2 word descriptions for each one of those things that justify the foundation of your professionalness for that specific field.
Yeah.
Yep.
No more than 5 commas. Break that out, because that's going to be subjectively supported by your job descriptions and stuff afterwards. So it's like, oh, well, this guy can teach. Well, like one of my headers is like all the stuff I've done for classroom construction and teaching and all that stuff. Academic. That's a professional word sound. So I would recommend redoing your summary, being constructed in a similar framework in that gloat a little bit about yourself in that construct, but it is concise of a narrative over your career, your life experiences, and then the rest of your resume supports that paragraph.
Yeah, to jump on to add on to that, I think it's we were talking about sort of how the professional experience tells the story. The summary should tell the story. It should be the same story, and then when you read the professional experience, it should mirror, right? It should have
It's
like a reflected. Yeah, exactly. It's the cliff notes, right?
Gotcha.
Because that's symmetry. At least when I read a resume, if the summary doesn't match what the person's done in the rest of the world, there's a cognitive dissonance about the person that makes it harder to be like, does this person fit in this box or that box? Like, do they work? If there's a symmetry amongst all of it, where it all sort of ties together, it makes it really easy for the reviewer to get a sense of what story you're trying to tell, and to figure out very quickly, do they, am I hiring an evangelist or a threat hunter, and is this the person that fits in that role that I'm trying to fill?
What was I gonna say? I am surprised that I've ever been hired anywhere.
That's imposter syndrome. Stop it.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Like, pump the brakes on that right now,
man. No. Just because
I'd hire you in a second. So I don't know why you're saying that.
Because my resume.
You know approximately where you live, and I've been in your neighborhood already twice. I think this weekend.
What? Get the fuck out of here.
For an entirely work-related reasons, I will come out there now.
He has your phone number. He'll find you. It's fine.
Are you going to dress as a leprechaun?
Bring pizzas.
Only if you'll call me by my pet name.
Yeah, just now that I'm reading over this, like, yeah, this is this should never. I should.
Okay, actually, Danny, go ahead, Russ. All right, I'll say it, Danny, just to give you some honest and really frank feedback.
Go.
This is one of the better resumes I've seen in the last 6 months.
This is not
this
shit at
this
all.
is significantly above average already. So we're nitpicking, and we're
Yeah.
and,
No, you
and
had
for me,
good, good.
I'm nitpicking mostly because I think the audience needs to hear it, right?
Yeah.
I read a lot of really terrible resumes. This resume is not terrible. This resume is quite good. But we're giving like all the little tweaks that will take it from good to I would hire the person when I read the resume.
Yeah. No, what?
before
Like
the
I'm
100%.
looking at this as a building inspector.
Yeah.
yeah.
That sort of thing is like I know what my punch list items are, and I always have this like little academic thing that I do when I read stuff. Where I'm coming from is that if I showed you what my resume looked like when I applied for the FBI versus what I've been writing since,
I have my
was
resume from 15 years ago, and it hurts me.
So humiliating.
it is like doing this as a skill is unique, and I am fortunate enough that I had a lot of solid good coaching throughout my career on how to do this. A variety of different people from a variety of different fields, like because I did the academic thing, did the gov thing, I've done industry, I'm back in industry. I've seen how they all kind of do it differently, but I've learned from my experience the commonalities, what's important to, like, oh wow, I really need to tweak things a little bit in order to the hook in the mouth and the fish on that side of the fence, which still goes back to my earlier opening rant about it's 2020. Cannot, like, why can't we standardize a resume format and a markup language or solidify one so that Monster Jobs, whenever it goes, oh, click here to upload resume, and now you have to like copy and paste every single damn thing all over again.
Yep.
I don't think that I will ever see the end, and I would like to think that I've been doing this for a while now, and I've accomplished some things. I will never see the end, and never. I will be just as confused as the person who is sending out a resume for the very first time, until I'm dead, of the whole. People are so sure to tell you 1 page only, no matter if you're doing 30 years, or 3 pages is okay, or 2 pages, or I won't even fucking look at you if you don't have a like. People like the zealousness of it will never cease to amaze me. Because we have talked for an hour now, and there were still, I'll see somebody pop up tomorrow in a thread, going, this I've seen like recruiters say, I won't even look at a resume if it's more than 1 page. Fucking what?
Well, then that's
It
an
didn't come
indication
out.
for you.
Yeah.
You probably don't want to work there.
Yeah.
They're not
so,
going to appreciate you.
Yeah, like security, there's no one size fits all.
Oh, come on.
And like everything else, like humans are incredibly different and will have opinions, and this is a document that describes you, a very unique human. There's no real, you have to make it yourself, right? The goal of this is to get you past the gatekeepers to the hiring manager and actually get that much of their time. So it's tricks to maintain attention. It's for ease of use.
I have another piece of advice, and it depends on who you're filling out an application for. So, in the gov space, they outsource the initial filtering of resumes, and they do straight up shitty regex buzzword bingo
Yep.
patches. So if in the job description it says we're looking for AIX experience, you don't say AIX anywhere, despite the fact that you say, but I got Unix experience, not going to pass the initial muster. So depending, and I did my initial job application to the FBI. I had one resume that I put through the automated system that was 100% factually accurate. It came to me with the guidance that there's going to be a machine that's going to be looking at the words and doing regex searches.
Yep.
Make sure that there's a merriment percentage. When you show up for your actual interview, drop another piece of paper. It's more formatted and things like that.
Yep. I've had professional like resume people say, have the machine readable version, whatever that means. I'm like, you have no object oriented. Okay, anyway. And then have the pretty version, which is more for the hiring manager as well.
Uh-oh. I think something happened with the stream.
No, I have to unfuck some things because
Okay.
I think Mike's connection dropped.
Yep.
Fair. Yeah, no, like sorry, Red. It was, but yeah, like to our point, it's the it's kind of like back to that elevator pitch sort of thing. You have the one thing that someone looks at that's not even the hiring manager, and they got to make a decision because they're doing a string search replace, or a machine's doing it for them, and then you get the opportunity to be in front of
People.
the panel or people and such. Here's the one that doesn't have glitter on it because I care about your safety.
And to dovetail into that, also be able to talk the story of your career in under 5 minutes, because typically the first question is, tell me about your career. And it's you okay? It's right in front of you. So da 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 da. But you should not read every bullet point. It is a started here if you want to go reverse order, very short, if you want to establish educational layers that the job requires, like a master or whatever, and then have a narrative that tips into your job and what brings you to their desk now. It's storytelling over just regurgitation.
Yeah, that's the one part where I am never afraid. Like, I will tell stories all day long.
Yep.
I never shy away from that, which is
But
not.
it has to be very succinct, because it'll always be the first question, and you only have 30 minutes, maybe 60 for an interview, and you need to flush them out as well.
Yay!
There's not
Mike's
a
back.
lot that I'm allowed to disclose about the bureau interview process, but it is the weirdest one that I participated in as an applicant and also executed as an interviewer. It is completely weird.
I've both interviewed for and interviewed at. So like, I've had companies in the past that you're expected to take the day off and you're going to have the gamut of people. I hated that template because I feel like you're treating the interviewee as just a resource or a piece of meat. And I'm like, stop it. I have been the subject of those types of interviews where they're in a different country and I have to get up at 4 a.m. in the morning and have this conversation. And then it goes on for 8 to 12 hours. It's never a great process for, and these are historically larger corporations. Yeah, but to have here's the elevator pitch, you kind of got into the room, and then the tell me about yourself is different than tell me about your career, right? So tell me about yourself. You should have another dialogue for, and what you're passionate about and what's going to stick, versus tell me about your history and work career. Short as much as you can. It's hard when you're over 10 years, 20 years. But it is to give just kind of the narrative highlights of what makes you tick, the Cliff Notes version.
All right, we are at
Interviewing is a totally different skill set than resume writing.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I'm just suddenly going over every interview I ever tanked. So
Stop. No, sorry. No. Everyone's going to take interviews. It is just social engineering. Again, you will get a billion no's to that one yes, and do not let imposter syndrome get you down, especially during these times where so many of our colleagues are out of work. You have to keep knocking at that door. You have to keep tuning your resume. Fuck it, you'll get in. It's just gatekeeping.
Well,
You'll eventually find the thing. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Russ.
I
I was gonna say you'll eventually, like, to Lady Damona's point, like, you'll eventually find the thing that is right for you. And to me, interviewing is about finding that right thing. I mean, before I took the last job that I had, I probably did 30 or 40 different CISO or VP interviews before I found the right fit.
And you might find the wrong fit that you just couldn't quite flush out in the interview, and that's okay too. Like, this is an evolving thing. This is part of being a professional in the industry, any industry.
There's and this is God, we could talk about this for hours. There's a great comment.
Got more beer.
Yeah. Fava said, you know, I haven't had to go through an interview in 13 years, and I'm not looking forward to it. I haven't had to go, like, if shit hit the fan tomorrow, and I got that, hey, HR is on the phone call. You know,
Answer the phone.
it's been it's been 2 years. Oh yeah, except when you're on a
Make me fuck the police.
except when you get on a Zoom and
Go
then
ahead.
that mystery third person shows up. You know, like, as I would still, I remember when I had gotten laid off like the second to last time, because it's happened a lot. I remember, like, I hadn't actually had to interview for a couple of years. I got it like through friends of friends and things like that, which is a great problem to have. But I remember just taking and luckily at that point, I had a bunch of interviews, like from the word go. Because I remember I had tweeted out as I was getting a rift, and I was like, haha, lol, need a job. So people felt for me, and that was very nice. But I took, even if I didn't actually want or I wasn't even qualified, I would take every single interview offered to me, and I would get the shit. I felt physically beat up at the end.
Yep.
At the end of each day, if you don't feel like you got into a car wreck at the end, you're not having enough interviews. And I just remember feeling like I was so emotionally drained, it was physically manifesting. And yet, after all of those, when I finally came across the job that I really, really wanted, I fucking murdered it, because I had already scarred over and I had like gotten some of my swing back. So that is always my thing: is take as many interviews as are offered to you.
And some people will say, right, so again, if tomorrow an HR comes knocking after you're done shitting yourself, because everyone will shit themselves when that happens, right? That's why updating your resume every quarterly, so while it's still fresh, if you have your job description when you hired into your current position and you have all those bullet points with things that they're looking for, you're doing that job. Put them there, right? Take the good pieces, right? Totally, it's not plagiarizing. You're doing it. I try to save every job description that I've had when I've been offered positions is in a folder, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of what I've done, and because it sounds awesome, and you're doing that awesomeness, right? And you do get physically ill, and it will manifest physically because you're cognitively overloaded in these interviews, but it is training a muscle as you do this over and over again. Same thing with writing. I always joke and I say there is consultant-ese speak and writing, and then there's the rest of us. There is resume-ese, which is kind of like a dialect of consultantese in the United States, and then there's the rest of us. You got to do it, and it's not going to get any easier the more you don't update it over and over, because it keeps that dialogue in your head.
By the way, I swear to God, if I ever have to have that same Zoom with these same people, I am live streaming it. I'm just gonna hit stream.
So something I'd like to make a remark to that I saw in chat, Red had responded to, is that the construct of, but what if as a person you've got nothing to tell about yourself? And for me, reading that, one, I just kind of want to give you a hug, socially distanced. But there's a little, I feel like there's a little bit of imposter syndrome associated with a phrasing like that. Everyone has a story about themselves to tell and share. It's hard. I find it hard to. I don't want it to come off as bragging about myself. I don't want it to come off as being condescending or anything else along those lines. And in some regards, I feel like there's also possibly part of that seems to be in that framework there. But I always feel like everyone has a story to tell. And one of the pieces of advice that I had been given was, what if you are the one person in the stack of 200, and got to talk about that one unique thing about yourself. Well, maybe it's not relevant to the job. Maybe you like to go backpacking. Maybe you like to go LARPing. Maybe you like to go paintballing. Maybe you like doing some random project or something else along those lines. Talk about that. Everyone is unique. Maybe you like making your own homemade mayonnaise, and it's an amazing thing. I don't know, but it's
It makes you
everyone.
stand out from the deck.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to make you don't have to stand out from the deck from the skill set with it and make yourself stand out as a personality because they are ultimately hiring a human being. And the one thing that I tried my best to when I started injecting humor in my resume was and I started realizing that it was too robotic. No one could get a feel about my humanity aspect of it. And part of that interview process is that two-way street where they're evaluating you and you're evaluating them. Uh, Test with some light humor or something else along those lines. There's something unique for everyone, and it doesn't have to be resume specific, but it could be conversational one way or another. Like those trip up questions of like explain some complex situation that you had that was a conflict and you worked it out and all that sort of stuff. I don't recommend going like therapist couch route for an explanation or something like that.
Yeah, like funny side note, and Russ wouldn't tell this publicly, but he got his last job because he showed up with the person who was interviewing him. He gave him their FBI file. Oh, it was hilarious.
Something. I gave a lot of details about them that they didn't really realize that were out
And
there.
if that route doesn't so I have lost jobs and then got them back and it was more of a transition with leadership, so they're kind of going through the entire company, kind of doing the interview and kind of fleshing out. So do you have any questions for me? And I'm like, what's your favorite game that you played last time, right? Like, I'm trying to get that sense of humor because it's been very, very serious until that point. That got me nuked, right? Just wasn't the way it was. However, the people who I was working for went to bat to get me back in the company. So again, it could be in that interview, that company and that manager might not be right for you, and then you're just going to be miserable and still interviewing to find another job.
Sure. So with the
Actually,
specific
something.
example in chat, if I can specifically talk to that
Go
real
for
quick,
it,
sorry
Russ.
to interject. It's I would talk about that specific situation as time management, prioritization, um, care and faculties, compassion, and passion. Like
Empathy.
there empathy. Like
Dis-
there's these
discipline.
absolutely. You can take that difficult situation and break out those specific core sets and skill sets that can be used to help describe what you would be like as an employee.
Schedule management, operations, like that is the resume ease version of what you're doing.
Yep, it's
Sorry, I wanted to talk on that since it was like a live discussion.
yeah.
Yeah, me too. I was going to say something very similar. I think that's a wonderful story that says a lot about who that person is, and while you don't, so I think anybody who's done a lot of interviews has already seen the other side of this, right? There's an overshare thing that you kind of have to work on. That Red said something about resume ease that I think is really important. You got to find the way to say it in a way that tells the story of what you're doing that's relevant to the business, but that what you're up to and what you're doing is really something that speaks a lot to the character of who that person is, and is something that a hiring manager would want to hire. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that I always equate it, and it's actually a lot of how I approach my interviews that I do on the stream. It's how I have learned over the years from having been radio and having been in very forward-facing, client-facing job. Like 90% of my past gigs have all been talking to somebody else that doesn't have the same email domain as I do. And when I do these interviews with people, when it's not a topic like this, like when I interviewed Jack Resider or I interviewed Dave Kennedy or whatever, I barely prep, right? There's a lot of people that will do show notes, and there was a lot of people that will do like bit by bit, and they have to have every little thing out. I always think whenever the general topic, it feels like it's slagging or whatever, I can always default to the human element, because that is the great equalizer of we're humans and we both experience things in different ways. So how do I keep moving this forward? And then I'll throw in something like, what do you do to relax, and blah, blah, blah. And it could be something as innocuous as that, or telling a story. And then that opens up all different kinds of inroads in that conversation. No small part of this, it's something I learned taking my social engineer courses from Chris Hadnaggy, is the active listening, right? Like, it is paying attention to every little thing and waiting for that making mental notes of things. And
it's draining to actively listen.
It is, yes. That's why you have to practice. And you can practice this with everybody, even if you've been quarantined with the same person for 4 months, right? At like doing.
Let anyone talk to my 5-year-old. It's great.
Yeah.
I got a cat. That's all I got.
Right.
But by the way, Danny, where's your radio experience on this resume?
Communication skills, radio experience.
Nowhere. I had never really thought about it. I hadn't really crossed my mind.
Make a note.
Yeah, but if you're talking about your, being an evangelist and your communication skills and all these things, man, that's relevant.
It's right
Your
after
social
his
engineering
organization
courses.
skills.
Shut up to us. Yeah, no, you're right. And again, like this, where the track I'm on now is over the past 3 years, but still relatively new, where I've had to do this, and I would have never thought about that ever, or thought that anybody would have cared.
But it's relevant.
Absolutely is.
But yeah. So for just to tie up with the comment from somebody else, think of what you're doing with taking care of somebody who is bedridden. That entire story as like taking it and putting it through a sieve, right? Like you're sifting for gold, right? Not all of it, like not the whole chunk and everything is going to go, but whatever gets caught in the sieve, that's the things to kind of build on. That's the things to build that recipe on, and you can take those and mold those. I love talking in metaphors. So, but yes, just look for those common themes, and it's also like improv, right? I've talked a lot about how improv is a really great exercise for social engineers, but it's great for life in general. You can find these inroads of things. A lot of improv shows start with the group on stage asking for a one-word suggestion, right? And somebody will inevitably say something food-related because it's just fucking how it happens. But somebody says orange juice, right? I would be the one to come out and do like a little monologue on that. And it is the key to that is I don't have to talk about orange juice. All I have to say is orange juice makes me think of this time where I was taking a road trip with somebody, and I threw up on the side of the road, and then we ended up getting arrested. Whatever. But this thing makes me think of this. So how do I tie all this back in to still make it relevant, right? Don't be so stuck on it has to be about this thing. Spin it to how it's about the thing you're trying to interview for. And that's all. I can pontificate for hours on that, but yeah, just try to spin it in your head a little differently, and you'll be surprised with what you come up with. I just want to know what half the panel is drinking from their mason jars.
Mine's electrolytes and water.
Mine's it's blackberry Italian soda.
Does plants crave electrolytes?
Rondo. Was it Mondo? Rondo? What was the title of that drink?
Man.
Guys,
screw it. I forget.
It has been a long day. To that end, we've talked for like an hour and a half. Brondo, thank you, Fava. Brondo's got what plants grave. So I did all this to sacrifice, eat your own dog food, right? And plus, I had trouble coming up with topics for this week. But I figured maybe if somebody goes back and watches this, or I'll create some highlights and things like that of. It's not as cut and dry, but I think we've had a lot of really. I could not have lucked out with a better panel than Red, Mike, and Russ, who have had infinite amounts of experience doing this. Go back. I'm also going to go back through this entire video, which I'm dreading fucking doing, and listening to all this stuff and taking out those.
Phone number.
Yeah. No, I mean, like writing a blog about this and taking out all the good advice that you guys gave.
I'd be happy to help you with that offline. But I also want to thank you for putting yourself out there, because this is like a really fucking raw experience.
I could not do this. This is OPSEC hell for me. So yeah.
I now know
being the guinea pig / punching bag / hamster from former years of my life.
And also, I now know that my genius idea to do this to other people, I'll never do it. Because I'm not going to do this to anybody else.
Look, you can ask, and I'll go say, fuck you. But it's fine.
It's going to be like
if you want to do it to me, you can rip apart my resume all day.
Oh. No, I would like to put you...
I'd be happy to as well.
I would like to put you through an actual, interview loop. Because I always love...
Ooh, that'd be fun.
I always love that story that you told about you being a prick interviewer. So that still sticks with me.
The next episode, you will be interviewing Danny based on his new revised resume.
Oh, that would be fun.
Please, no.
We should do a simulation panel about job interviews.
God, this could go on and on. Yeah, there's a bunch here. But anyway, I hope... I am now... physically, I feel like I got beat up in an interview. I'm physically exhausted. I haven't felt this tired even when I did my 24-hour thing. I'm not that tired. I feel more exhausted than that. But so Mike Murray, CEO of Scope Security, Red. Aside from being a gamer extraordinaire, you're a CISO. Yes, Red is. I don't even think we covered. Did we even cover that? Did we even tell what you did?
Again, I'm an OPSEC person. Yeah. So I am a CISO at a professional services firm that does advisory CISOs as a service, and I'm actually the CISO for that company, based off of the East Coast.
So surprise! You've been hearing from a CEO, a CISO. And probably still an ex-CIA spook. I am not convinced that he's not.
T-shirt.
So if you want to catch up with any of them, they're all on the Twitters at Lady Demona, at M Murray, and at Don't Look Behind You. So yes, I hope this was helpful for at least somebody. And again, we've done a whole series of these with me and Mike and Joe, and just about interviewing and job searching. So I know that we'll do more of them. And now I have to go make some edits, which will be the next 6 hours of my night. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody else, for joining in chat. Appreciate everybody subbing and subscribing and giving them away. I really do appreciate all that stuff. So I will see all of you later, and thank you to my panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Danny.
We crack a beer in interaction chat.
So I can tell you my filtered, unfiltered stories now?
Uh-huh.
Oh my god.
So let me crack.